So thank you so much for that. And I mean, like for that American perspective, like why should I go? But talk to that person that's right now on the continent saying, you got everything in the States. Why so many of y'all trying to come here? I don't get it.
Hmm. I would say to that person who thinks that America is like the slice of heaven that everyone thinks it is. I'm here to tell you that it's not. I would definitely say like the privilege is different. We do have more access to things, but life as a Black woman in America isn't all it's cracked up to be. Especially when you're in different spaces where you are the only one that looks like you, or even sometimes being around other Black people that are in America is not. Sometimes it's not always like the friendliest places to be in, and you really want to know like where did that division start? Like where does it come from? Like who started it? Where do all of these things come from? So I guess if I could like shape that perspective a little bit, I would say that the grass isn't necessarily greener on this side. Yes, we may have more resources and things, but it comes with a lot of like a heavier price tag, I would say. And it may seem as though we have like all of the access and all of the opportunities, but really African Americans in this country aren't given as much as their counterparts. And we're honestly being killed and murdered every day out here as well. So I would like the lesser of two evils. Yes, we have more opportunities, but like at what cost to be here, to take up space and to constantly have to fight to show other people that we matter here in this country too. And that's what probably will send so many people back to Africa, because they're just like, oh, well, my people are all over there. Like they want to kill me over here anyway. So I might as well just go back to where I see a lot of people and where we originally come from. And honestly, people are willing to give up that experience of like having all of the resources here just to be where at least I know it's safe for me to be here, because there's more people that look like me. I don't have to fight as much for my rights and I don't have to fight and argue for just the space and like the freedom to just be and not have to worry about going outside and being shot down or being arrested just for doing something that everybody else does that doesn't look like me, So that's what I would say to someone who's in the country, just like, why would you leave that heaven? Well, it's not necessarily heaven over there. I mean, it's like the lesser of two evils, but yeah.
You really make some great points, and I think that what I've learned in my experience is really helping people understand that no place is perfect. And while I think there are tremendous advantages with a developed nation like the U.S., there are some things. What I tell people, mostly what I get in Ghana is the things that money can't buy, like the peace of mind, like you said, walking down the street, no matter what neighborhood I'm in. Nobody's going to harass me simply based on the color of my skin. If I do get discriminated against because I am an American or something like that, the discrimination won't be to the effect that it's going to significantly hinder opportunities. You know what I'm saying? So that won't happen. So I think that that's the thing that I try to tell. Hold on one second. Tahaji. Yes, I'm on my meeting, son. Please go back. Kids, man, kids.
That's all right.
So that's the thing that I tell folks, right? And the truth is there are a lot less economic and developmental opportunities on the continent. But the beauty is, and I understand now why so many people travel to the States. I really do. The problem is when people get lost in the sauce and they forget about the opportunities that they can create once they access some of the resources there to come back and really live the kind of life, right? The quality of life. They can get the quantity there, but they can get the quantity here. Right. You talked about a lot of amazing, great, wow, dope moments in Ghana. Were there any moments that kind of sobered you up and made you think like, this is difficult, this is challenging, or even made you reassess your African American, your American identity?
I would say the day that we went to the slave castles, when we started in Elmina, that entire day, it was a heavy day in general, because there was a lot of information to process, a lot of like things that I didn't learn as a Pan-African Studies minor at Kent State. I would say that day and those like moments of revelation were probably like some of the heaviest and probably the hardest ones to swallow, like the hardest pills to swallow, I would say. I knew going into Ghana that, okay, yeah, Black people did own other Black people. I guess I just never knew how widespread it was and like where exactly it started. So hearing more about that when I got to Ghana was kind of like heartbreaking. And then also adding in my identity of being a Christian, I was just like, there's just so much brokenness everywhere, and seeing how all of the different things kind of play into why slavery became what it was. And in some places still is. That was very heartbreaking to me. And then I guess like in some of the conversations that we had with like the professors that came and taught, I was just like listening and like trying to think critically about just where people get these different perspectives from. So I think a culmination of all of the things that we learned just while being there, but specifically at the castles, was probably like the hardest moment for me. I didn't have as many issues with like some of the people that we met, where like people were calling us like O'Brunies or whatever. I never got called that. So I mean, I can't like deny anybody else's experience. So that just never happened to me while I was there. But yeah, I would say like that moment in particular, those moments of revelation and being in those spaces where I knew like some of our ancestors actually were really hard to me. And I was just like, wow, this is probably one of those things that doesn't necessarily leave a bad taste in your mouth, but like there's only so much you can learn in the textbook. And so actually being there to experience it was probably the hardest part for me.
Wow. You mentioned something about some of the conversations with professors and some of how they got to have the thought processes that they did. Specifically, what are some of those things that you were mentioning?
So I think it was the first or second day, it probably was the second day, where we had the one professor come in and he was talking about the conversation of reparations that came up. And there were definitely quite a few people in our group that were not so happy with like what he said about his perspective as to who owes who the reparations. Because in America, we're like, oh yeah, like white people owe us the reparations because we were the ones that were enslaved. And I think, if I remember correctly, his idea was it's the African Americans that owe like the true Africans like the reparations. I believe that's what he said. And so that's what got like, I think so many people like tight in our group, because they were
I remember people was like, what?
Like you're like, so we owe each other, you know what I'm saying? Like, but we were all like, I think the people in our group were like, okay, so we are, we're a part of this history. So why should we have to pay y'all? Like, we weren't the ones necessarily that enslaved y'all or whatever. And then that, you could definitely feel a little bit of tension in the room. So especially when it comes to money, Black people get so interesting when it comes to money. But I would say just like soaking in that, because I've never heard that perspective before. And I try to like give everybody the space to, say their own opinions and what they feel. But that was kind of off the wall to me. I was like, oh, never heard that one.
And what it communicates is the real disconnect that we have about each other's stories. And the thing that unites us is not the color of our skin, right? Mm-hmm. Because even when you look at the term Obruni, right, the history of the term really was a term meant as a derogatory term to give warning for the white folks that were coming from the horizon because they were tricksters. Yeah. But it just got translated to like pretty much anybody who's a Westerner, right, is an Obruni. And so the way that people perceive, particularly African Americans, Ghanaians perceive, or even some other Africans that perceive African Americans, is y'all just Americans. And they don't understand the dynamics of a Black American, Hispanic American, Asian American. The idea is that all y'all like Michael Jordan, all y'all like, whoever, right? So there's a lack of understanding about each other's histories. And then equally, when you talk about reparations, right, there's a lack of understanding about the real economic, educational, and social kind of paralysis that the continent is still in to this day. Mm-hmm. And because oftentimes the European powers, it don't matter if the Western powers are the Western powers. It don't matter if you're Black Western, white Western, the Western powers have gotten us. So listen, y'all owe us, you know what I'm saying? Right. But I think those conversations, like you just said, I think it sobers us up to the reality that we really don't know each other. And that's the thing that divides us, because I think if that conversation would have went longer, about reparations and really digging deeper to how we really think about each other, then it would have been great, because I think it would have caused some conflict. But then after that conflict, I think it could have caused some great healing, like the Unite Conference did. One of my final questions for you, as we talk about, all these great experiences that you had, some experiences that kind of sobered you up to our different realities, is when you look back to that experience, what kind of an impact did it have on your identity as American, as a Pan-Africanist, as a woman, as an African-American, all these kind of identities that you have that intersect?
I would say the entire experience definitely left me it left me fulfilled, but also in a way like thirsting for more, like wanting to go to other countries within the continent of Africa to like broaden that horizon. Because I mean, I feel like I can't in good faith say like, oh, I've been to Ghana, like I've been to Africa, like I have the full experience already. No, I think that if anything, like it made me want to learn more. Like I eventually wanted to make it to Egypt. I'm trying to get to Kenya at some point, like it made me want to broaden my horizons and dig in deeper to learn more. I say like what it did also for my was identity, like that point of like that fulfillment. Like I feel like what I was always kind of looking for, that that sense of community or whatever, I realized I didn't necessarily need to come to Ghana to get that, but I got more than what I was expecting, if that makes sense. So like I have a pretty good community like where I am and everything. I think coming to Ghana just added to that. So it didn't make the entire experience, but it was definitely a compliment onto that. So I would say finding that another part of community. I won't say I found my entire community there, but another sense of community being there was awesome. And then I also would say, actually, no, I think that pretty much wraps it up. But yeah.
Wow. I said that was the last question, but I'm gonna end with this one. Right? It's not a curveball, but let's say one of the favorite foods that you tried while you were in Ghana.
Okay. We had a lot of chicken and rice, I would say. But I was appreciative because like I feel like every time I had it, it was made differently. Like I tried it with the I can't remember the actual name, but it was like a fish sauce or whatever.
Yeah. The shito. Is it the shito?
Yes, the time that I tried it with that, like I feel like every time I had chicken and rice, it was like a different variation in some way, whether it was like the seasonings or like that, like stuff that was added onto it. That I think when we were at the restaurant, you had a dish that you let us try. Was it Kelly Welly, I think?
How did it look? Was it the green kind of, was it the Kelly Welly or the consumer stew?
I think it was Kelly Welly because I don't think it was stew.
Okay, well, it may have been the Kelly Welly.
Yeah, I think what you let us try one time. I really like that. I didn't. Oh, and jollof rice. I would say that probably like trumped like all of the meals that we tried. And I'm actually salty that I didn't get a chance to try as many things that I wanted or like branch out. I branched out in some areas, but like when it came to food, like whatever was given to us or whatever that I could like recognize on the menu, I pretty much like tried that. But jollof rice was it was great. I remember I was talking to one of the ladies at the library and she was like, oh, this is your first time trying like Ghanaian like jollof rice. I said, yeah, and it's like really good. She was like, I need you to say that on tape so I can say that to everybody, all of my friends who think that their jollof rice is better. And I thought that was really funny just to see like the beef between like the different cultures.
Yeah. Especially Nigeria. It's really Nigeria and Ghana, the whole jollof rice thing.
Yeah.
Well, Taylor, you've said some great things, and I think that there's somebody watching this that they've been like, I don't even know if I want to go, and maybe I'm nervous, maybe I'm scared too. And I'm young, I got my whole life ahead of me to go. But to see somebody like you, who's not only a Pan-African Studies major, but through your trip to Ghana, learn a little bit more about your Pan-African identity because of that exposure on the continent. You got your book in the library in Africa.
Yeah.
And you had some amazing experiences. So I definitely think it's going to help a lot of people out. Any final words, anything else you want to say to the folks before we wrap up?
I would say to anybody else who's still on the fence about whether or not you should go, I would just say try it for yourself. For anyone else who's like studied like Pan-African studies, you think that everything that you read in the books is like all that you need. But no, like it took everything that I learned and it heightened it, and it definitely added to that experience. I would definitely say it's better to experience for yourself in person than to just read it and study it and think that you have all the head knowledge. I think head and heart need to be able to connect. You need to be there and actually truly experience. So anybody who's still on the fence, like I would just say, just go for it. Experience it for yourself, learn for yourself so that you can create your own like opinions and things based off of what you've experienced instead of someone else's experience.
Wow. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for your time today. I sincerely appreciate it. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe. Until next time, peace.